Mike Tomlin spoke at his press conference on Tuesday and let us know some good news, but also some not so good news about the injury front. But it leaves a lot of doors open. One thing's for sure is that Chase Claypool will be back this week. Huge news for the Steelers offense, and they need it. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the no spin zone because there's a lot of things being taken out of context when it comes to the Steelers and the media. Tony Serino is going to join me. It's not a Tony Tuesday, it's a Tony Wednesday. But we're going to talk about that and a lot of other aspects of the Steelers right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. We thank you for making us your first listen every day. I'm Chris Carter, your host. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things in the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find us on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube. Like this video if you see it on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It always helps us out. It was a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts with a positive comment. You get a shout at the end of the show. And Tony, I can't say it as confidently because it's not Tuesday, but it's time for a Tony Wednesday. You know what I'm saying?
And it's too bad that it couldn't have been a Tony Tuesday because it could have been a Tony Ties
Day. Yes.
Yeah.
Or if the Steelers just didn't choke, it would have been a Tony Wednesday because then we would have had it today. So both our foul ups on our schedules and then the Steelers fouling up on just their schedule. But Tony, it's great to have you back on the show, my man. It's always a pleasure to have you here on the scene. Let's jump right into the top news, of course, of the day. Chase Claypool, Mike Tomlin says he will practice on Wednesday, which is huge for the Steelers. They need him back in that offense. I mean, the offense needs a lot of things. But he talked about the possibilities of different players. For one, he said Joe Hayden and Trey Turner, potential for them to practice this week. Didn't seem as excited about them coming back. Said he would leave the light on for TJ Watt to play this week. Usually that means, listen, man, if he says he can go Sunday, he gonna go Sunday. It's one of those things. And then still says Ben Roethlisberger has to clear COVID and all that kind of stuff. But I think the bottom line here is that everyone's talking about Minkah Fitzpatrick. He made it seem as if Minkah Fitzpatrick would not be back for this game, and they're preparing for a life without Minkah Fitzpatrick, and that's a scary idea right now with this Steelers team.
Yeah, it is. And while Minkah has not been like the elite playmaker that we've seen him as far as, these kind of game-changing plays, he nearly had one in overtime with the interception. It was called back. But he's still a big part of what that defense wants to do and the kind of moving chess piece that he can be on that defense. So not having him there is going to be one thing. But then you look at the depth behind him, and Tomlin talked about this at the press conference, right? Talking about how it's not going to be one guy to replace what Minkah does. That's going to be a multi-person job, and you have to imagine that's going to involve, rookie Trey Norwood. That's going to involve Miles Killebrew, who they signed in the offseason, and it'll likely also involve, I think, Carl Joseph, right, who'll be elevated again. So, yeah, it's a big loss. I mean, the injuries right now are starting to pile up for this team, here at the midway point. And we know that the NFL is this league of attrition. But, boy, it's all kind of compounding at once for the Steelers.
It really is. I mean, that they're dealing with the backup quarterback situation. Both of their guards went out in this last game. Also, he did indicate Kevin Dotson, is going to be looked at. He might not be gone for that long. So that's another good thing there. And not that Kevin Dotson's a superstar, but he's an important piece when you have so few offensive linemen that you can trust right now. So. Yep. I look at these updates as mostly positive. The fact, and to me, I said this on yesterday. So TJ Watt, just the fact that he's not done for the season is the biggest thing you could take away from that. If he was done for the season, so was the Steelers. I don't know if you could see it on TV, Tony, but like when I was in Heinz Field, that was the quietest I've ever heard the stadium when he was down, and everyone's just like, the whole team was standing around him. Normally when a guy's down, everyone's kind of like take a knee. They'll respect the guy. Everyone was like, "Oh no, not that guy." But that's the impact of that. But there's impact for other guys. I truly think there needs to be some way that they get Chase Claypool involved in this offense, especially over the middle part of the field. They continue to not do it. Mason Rudolph didn't do it in this last game. And now it's starting to look like, hey, Matt Canada, even if you are drawing up guys to be there, you got to you got to talk to these quarterbacks and make sure that they're finding these guys because they just aren't.
Chris, how are they going to work Chase Claypool when they found their new wide receiver one in Ray McLeod? The Ray McLeod involvement, like, and I get they were down, they were down some wide receivers in that game, obviously with Juju being down and Claypool, that Ray was going to get more reps. But yeah, it was kind of strange to me to watch the rapport that Mason Rudolph and Ray have. I'm with you on the middle of the field, and I guess the one thing you'll chalk this up to, and they keep saying this, Tomlin talked about it after the game, as did Mason. Tomlin talked about it again at the Tuesday press conference. This was a Ben Roethlisberger game plan. We know that Ben doesn't like to throw over the middle of the field. So I guess if you're going to try and excuse this one away, like, why didn't they use the middle of the field, even though you have like a Mason Rudolph in the offense? I guess you'll say maybe it's because it was a Ben Roethlisberger offense. But even still, I'm with you on this, Chris. Like, the middle of the field's got to be used more. It is the great mystery of this team, not just this year, but over the last 2 seasons, of why is it that this team has just abandoned all even attempts at the middle of the field. I think Claypool can work there. We've seen what Freiermuth can do in those spots. I don't really have great answers for it, though, because like you said, this was a change at quarterback, but it didn't change the approach offensively.
No, I agree. It seemed like it was the same sort of approach. When it comes to how the Steelers have operated on offense. And that's where, that's where you have to question, is this just the game plan that Matt Canada wants to run all the time? I will say this, though. It is not as easy as it seems to a lot of people to call plays. It's not like you're out there playing Madden. You're there's a lot of different things you're trying to call upon, things you guys worked on in practice that you're like, okay, we're more sure about this play than that play, and more sure about this look than that look. But I look at these at the issues that they're having, and they continue to be consistent. And is it a little unfair to Matt Canada in his first year as an offensive coordinator in the NFL? Maybe. And in fact, yes, no, I'll even say it is unfair, that hey, you're getting judged so harshly with an offense, with a brand new offensive line, with a super aged quarterback, and lots of questions on it. But that's also life in the NFL. The NFL is unfair. They don't give you too many chances. Like, you have to strike it now, or you have to show some form of consistency, or they will find a way to replace you. And he hasn't done that yet. I truly said it, leading into this week with Chase Claypool being out. I said that they needed to find a way to get the ball to Pat Freiermuth and maybe work some 12 personnel packages with Eric Ebron with Claypool in. I truly think that's the key to unlocking this offense. Get those guys bigger shots down the middle of the field, and then when teams are focused on them, that opens up Najee Harris, that opens up the sidelines for more passes to James Washington, Deontay Johnson.
Yeah, I'm with you. And then I think in the running game too, going more under center in those situations can help Najee just kind of build up momentum, that head of steam. Yeah, absolutely. And you saw that in this game a little bit. And I think more of that going forward. Look, and it's one of those things where we know Ben Roethlisberger doesn't like that stuff. But if Mason Rudolph's playing, okay, well, then Mason's got to go under center a little more, because that's what this offense needs from him against the Chargers team, because it's a Chargers team that I think can be had on the ground. This is by Football Outsiders numbers, by their DVOA numbers, the worst run defense in the National Football League.
Yeah.
So get under center and run Najee Harris and run it until the Chargers can stop you.
Right. And that needs to be the focus here, whether it's Mason or Ben or anybody. Najee Harris is a weapon. We've seen him be a weapon. Let him be a weapon. We're going to talk more about that in a little bit. But first, we got to talk about some spin talk in the second segment. We'll do that in just a minute here. But first, I got to tell you guys about our great app, Get Upside, one of our awesome sponsors here. Steelers fans, this is Chris Carr with an incredible app everyone who buys gas needs to know about. It's called Get Upside. My listeners are making up to 25 cents for every gallon of gas every time they fill up. Just download the free Get Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now. Use promo code TOUCHDOWN to get a bonus 25 cents per gallon on your first fill up. That's going to be up to 50 cents cash back. Don't pay full price at the pump anymore. Get cash back using Get Upside. Just download the app for free and use promo code TOUCHDOWN to get up to 50 cents per gallon cash back on your first tank. Some people who drive are making as much as $200 or $300 a month in cash back, and there's no catch. The cash back gets added right to your account. You can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Get Upside app and use promo code TOUCHDOWN to get 50 cents per gallon cash back on your first tank. Again, that's promo code TOUCHDOWN on the Get Upside app. And back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm Chris Carter here with Tony Serino for a Tony Wednesday. Remember, we thank you for making this your first podcast listen every day, as we are free and available on all platforms. Now, Tony, I want to talk to you about spin. Let's step away from the Steelers themselves. Let's talk about the coverage of the Steelers. And I'm involved in this because I cover the Steelers, not just here, but also for DKPittsburghSports.com. But there were some interesting things that I missed as being talked about, after the game as like major talking points when he coming out of the press conference. And part of that's just, hey, I go to the game, go to the press conference, leave the press conference, go home, figure out what I want to do the show about, do the show, look at film, do all that. So I'm so often so focused on just getting the work done and making sure that the content here is A1 for y'all, that I don't pay attention to what other people say until it's like far out. And then the next couple of days, I'm looking at my Twitter account and I'm seeing, wait, that's what people think this means? That's what people are saying? What is happening here? And to me, it's just the level of some of it I think is coordinated spin. Some of it I think is just misinterpretation. For
Yeah.
example, I got into it with David Todd. He used to cover the Steelers for a while. He took it. Mike Tomlin after the game, he tweeted out on Monday saying that Mike Tomlin, in talking about Kendrick Green's snapping problems, said that it was irrelevant, and that he said it was one of the more arrogant and foolish comments he's heard Tomlin make in his entire tenure with the Steelers. Not a good look. And I was like, well, wait a second. Let me go back and get that quote, because I was there when he said that, and I don't think that this had any arrogance to it. And the quote simply read, "It's irrelevant when you think about it. There are things we have to do at an acceptable level. Center to quarterback exchanges are no different than when we're in a gun or under center. We're a professional football group. There's a certain expectation there." That to me reads as Mike Tomlin's like, I don't care what the reason is for the high snaps.
Right.
He has to fix it. He's an NFL center. And some people said, oh no, that's him saying that he doesn't care. The snaps were relevant. No, he's just not making excuses. And here we go. Now Mike Tomlin's being arrogant, and I just don't get that.
No, look, and obviously this is frustration coming after what was a very, very frustrating performance by the Steelers, and so from that perspective, I kind of understand, kind of trying to dig between and read between the lines, figure out what's really going on with this Steeler team. It does kind of remind me of those, kind of the end of the Le'Veon and AB era when we had a lot of this as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and Tomlin explained this during the Tuesday press conference. Right? What he was not saying is that the high snaps were irrelevant. What we need to do to fix them is irrelevant, right? The irrelevant part is Kendrick Green is a center in the National Football League. It is not a secret how to get the ball to the quarterback. It's not a mechanical thing that these two need to work on, or like Tomlin said, it's not a timing issue, or it's not about going under center more often. The center has to hike the ball to the quarterback. It's a fundamental part of the NFL. And I think Tomlin actually did a great job of kind of going over this today, where it's like, you can overthink this stuff. If Tomlin wastes time in practice trying to teach Kendrick Green how to snap the football in shotgun, that is a gigantic waste of time. It's a fundamental part of football. Exactly. It doesn't need to be practiced. It just needs to be executed on. And it's something that you expect of any center you have in the NFL. And I think that's what Tomlin was saying.
No, I agree. And again, this isn't to pick on David, because we talked about it and we just agreed to disagree. But I just didn't see any arrogance in him saying that. That's just, It's a job. Get it done. No excuses. Exactly. Bang. And that's what Tomlin does. He doesn't make excuses for his team. He always, puts up like, hey, this is the expectation. But I thought this definitely was spin from the people who pushed these quotes. And I didn't see it until I saw Chris Adamski trying to correct people. Chris Adamski of the Pittsburgh Tribune. Review, and then I saw Alan Saunders also do it from Pittsburgh Sports Now. Both of them just trying to correct the story here, because people latched on to when Joe Schobert was asked after the game about the tackling issues. He said that the quote that got passed around is that we have to work on, get ourselves into those positions and take practice seriously. And so people took the take practice seriously quote and said, whoa, Steelers didn't prepare for the Lions. And at first I was just like, I saw someone push that, and I'm like, that's no big. But then it just kept blowing up like this was actually what happened. The Steelers didn't practice this week. And I'm like, okay, calm down. First of all, common sense. Apply context. The full quote when Brooke Pryor of ESPN asked this, and again, this was the other thing. Brooke Pryor asked the question. I was there. Anthony Jalewski was there. Chris Adamski was there. Dejan Kovacevic was there. There was at least like 8 of us that were sitting right in front of Joe when he answered this question, and none of us were like, he took a shot at the whole team there. You know why? Because we understood the full context of what he said. Well, yeah, when it was asked about the tackling issues and how they were able to fix them before the Browns game, but they came back in this game, Joe Schobert says, and here's the full quote, "It's something that we have to go and execute. It's hard to execute in the middle of the season at practice. It's something we have to work on, get ourselves in those positions and take practice seriously and be able to improve on that." Yeah. That's the quote. That's the full quote when you pull it from the Pool Report. And when you look at that tells to me, Tony, again, common sense. After a Monday night football game, you have 31 at least less hours to ice your body up and get ready for the next game. So they don't practice on Tuesday. They never practice on Tuesday. Then when they practice on Wednesday, which would normally be the first like getting pads, getting back after it day, they're using it as a walkthrough day, and they even announced that. And then Thursday, you kind of have a practice, but then Friday you're back to walkthroughs because you're 2 days before the game, and you don't want to get your players banged up. You want to keep them, you see if they get their bodies as fresh as possible. And that's what Schobert's talking about, the difficulty of practicing physically in the middle of the season when everybody's banged up. Not this, the Steelers aren't practicing hard. Whoa.
Yeah, this is playing the hits. I mean, this is going back to like, Mike Tomlin teams are undisciplined.
Exactly.
This is just playing the hits. I mean, you can easily take this quote and spin it right into that narrative. And again, this is the week to do it, right? Because here we are again talking about a Steeler team that played down to this bad team in the Lions. It won't be the first time. Certainly isn't the first time. Won't be the last time probably as a Steeler fan that we're going to watch this. And so, yeah, obviously after all these games, you're going to want to look for reasons why. And hey, the hits tell you that, Tomlin teams are undisciplined. So this quote, as you said, was completely taken out of context. But I get it. This one, it doesn't surprise me at all because this has been the talk about why this happens, right? Tomlin teams are undisciplined is why they play down to their opponents in these moments, and is what it is.
And that's what tires me out, man, is that like, I'm just like, this whole thing, and mind you, and like, I felt like ranting at the end of Monday Night Football about just going on a Twitter rant and just being like, the Steelers, the only team that ever loses to teams with losing records. Nobody else does this, as the Rams lose to the 3-win Niners, as the Ravens lose to the 2-win Dolphins, as the Bills are now half of the Jaguars.
Well, they were one win at the time.
Exactly. It's even worse when you think about it. But do people not watch the rest of the NFL? It drives me nuts. And I know I've probably said this for 3 days in a row, but it drives me nuts when people say that. And it's like, I just tell me you watch football without telling me that you watch football. You don't watch football without telling me you don't watch football. Like, yeah, it's ridiculous. But this is where the spin comes into play, is that people want to take a certain quote, spin it to their narrative, get the likes on Twitter, and then they're like, see, Tomlin this, and then they'll hope that people forget that there was actual context to that, and then people will bring this up 2 weeks later and say, oh, I remember when they said they were taking practice seriously. You're like, no, you remember someone misquoting the situation and misrepresenting what that entire situation meant. And that's where we come into disingenuous conversations in the media, and I'm part of the media. I don't want, the media is not a monolith of we are all one way, that we all operate and we coordinate together to make sure that everything happens. Are there times we talk to each other? Absolutely.
Got a big group text going. There's a big group text. Yeah, you guys got a big group text going. I get it. I know what's going on.
Okay, you stop it there, sir. Just because I kicked you off the group text doesn't mean that you need to be mad about it.
Hey, I got my own spin zone I want to bring up here.
Oh no, what's your spin zone?
About Tomlin's Tuesday press conference. For those of you who didn't watch the YouTube, I suggest you go and watch the YouTube, especially those of you who work in an office setting, because as we all know, when you show up overdressed for work, what is the common question you get from your coworkers? Everyone always says it. Job interview today? Hey, you got a job interview? And Mike Tomlin showed up Tuesday, Chris, in a coat and button up today to the press conference. First time I've ever seen him this dressed up for. I'm just asking questions. I'm not trying to take anything out of context. I'm just saying, did Mike Tomlin have a job interview today? I mean, Virginia Tech job did open up. I'm not sure if there's a booster with a big enough blank check there, but it looked pretty nice today. I'm not sure. Maybe he had what was his press conferences at noon? Maybe he had like a 1:30. You know what I mean? Didn't have time to change in between. So, we've all been there. We've all been there.
I give you my silence treatment when I'm so tired of you. You need to go somewhere.
Maybe LSU did come with a big enough blank check. Who knows?
Wait. How can someone come with a bigger blank check? It's literally a blank check. It means that any could be whatever.
No, that's what Tomlin wants. Tomlin is always, what's the show where they show up with a big check at your house? Tomlin's always wanted that. That's what he really wants. He wants a really big check. Not at the number, okay? The size of the check itself is what Tomlin wants. If Rooney wants to re-sign Tomlin, he needs to get one of those big, I forget what they're called now. I wish I knew because the joke would be funnier. The big check, publishing house, something like that. I'm so close. But you know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about? The big checks. They show up at your door, the gigantic check. That's what Tomlin wants.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I got a big check once for a scholarship that I won when I was younger.
And how cool was it?
Did make me feel good.
There you go. See, and that's all Mike Tomlin wants.
So you know what? Maybe Tony's right. Maybe Tomlin just wants his feel-good moment of getting a really big check handed to him. Not in numbers, but in size.
The next time they re-sign Tomlin, it should be a press conference between Rooney and Tomlin where Rooney hands Tomlin a gigantic check. That's all we need. That's what we want. Or no, he shows up like unannounced to Mike Tomlin's house, rings doorbell, got it on camera and everything. It'd be a great TikTok moment. Come on.
So
anyway.
So I go on and talk about spin, and then you talk about that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, these are my favorite segments. These are my favorite segments.
They're my favorite too, Tony. They're my favorite too. But point being, some of the stuff that I've seen pushed is just as ridiculous as that.
Indeed.
Anyways, we got to keep it rolling here. We got to talk to some more sponsors real quick. When we come back, I got to get Tony's thoughts on some defensive things because we got to let him hype up his boy, James Pierre. We'll give you time to do that, Tony, because he had another solid game.
What? Not solid. Not solid is underselling it, but
okay. Save it.
Yeah, we'll save it.
Save it for the third segment. We're gonna get there. But first of all, we are brought to you by Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar ever. If you haven't tried a Built Bar by now, you are missing out. They say it's a protein bar, but it doesn't taste like one. You have to try one of these amazing bars yourself to believe it. Most protein bars are chalky, waxy, or just plain hard to choke down. But a Built Bar is soft, covered in 100% real chocolate. When you bite into one, you know you're eating something different. It's more of an experience, one that you'll enjoy. In fact, you'd swear you're eating a candy bar. Built Bars are low carb, low calorie, low fat, low sugar, but high in protein. That's all the healthy benefits on top of being just purely delicious because they have so many flavors. Whether it's you get a mouth-watering flavor like coconut, raspberry, mint brownie, coconut almond, salted caramel, double chocolate, or cherry barcia. This month, Built is coming out with new flavors every 3 to 4 days. So go to their website often and early. You don't want to miss out on all these opportunities to get their different flavors coming out. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15. That's LOCKED15, LOCKED15, all capital letters, all one words, and you'll get 15% off your order from built.com. Again, that's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. We're also brought to you by Bet Online. We're back and better than ever on Bet Online with a new web interface for the start of the basketball season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Bet Online remains your number one spot for all basketball and football action this season. You can head to their new updated desktop and mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use promo code Locked On to receive your bonus. From basketball to football to NHL to boxing to UFC, right down to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season at BetOnline, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports, and BetOnline where the game starts. Now, Tony, when we do back-to-back ad reads, that means we keep it rolling here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. So let's finish it up here strong. Which means I have to give your boy, James Pierre, some props.
Oh, yes, indeed.
He played well, Tony, and played well in port. First of all, he was announced to get the start. I thought that was, I even tweeted that out as I tweeted out the videos of the intros. And I actually tweeted that out, and I was hoping that you would see it. You didn't like it, so you let me down there, buddy.
I think I missed that one. Yeah, I missed that one. I apologize.
Way to go. I needed your heart on the tweets, and you were not there to back me up. But James Pierre was there to back you up because he came out in this game, 5 tackles, 2 assists on special teams, but also was just all over the place. He had a really good tackle at the line of scrimmage on a play where they tested him out wide. He made you not really miss Joe Hayden. I mean, you miss Joe Hayden because he's still Joe Hayden, but the cornerback position wasn't the issue in this game.
No, passing of the torch here. And listen, I love Joe Hayden. We know he's in the final year of his deal. Doesn't sound like he's going to get re-signed. And this was, we were waiting for it all season. We're about 9-10 games into this season now, and I think this was a true passing of the torch from one great and maybe even borderline Hall of Fame for Joe Hayden. He's a good player. I don't know if he's a Hall of Famer yet, but he's passing the torch now to a player who I think we can all see it now on the field, the future Hall of Famer in James Pierre. Going down, by the way, shutting down a former Super Bowl appearing quarterback in Jared Goff. Okay, one of the best in the league in Jared Goff. James Pierre just absolutely shut him down. I mean, absolutely shut down performance. You guys know PFF doing great grades out there. Gave my boy James Pierre an 87 grade. Just a tremendous performance.
I'm not looking at you funny because of the PFF grade. I'm just mad at what you just said about Jared Goff.
Former NFC champion. This
is true.
Former NFC champion quarterback at the top, and really he was at the top of his game on Sunday. You know what I mean? And they just shut him down. He just could not. And James Pierre, I think, he
was at the top of his game Sunday. This is worse spin than the Tomlin wearing the interview.
This one's hard. This one's a hard one to really unravel here and not sound like a complete moron. But that is my brand.
If you're listening to this, you can't see my face as he says these things. But if you're watching on YouTube, you are seeing exactly how I'm reacting, and this is 100%. I didn't know this bit was coming here. I knew that the bit for Pro James Pierre was coming, but not the praising of Jared Goff, the mighty Jared Goff.
Former NFC champion Jared Goff. James Pierre shut him down. No, I did think, but I mean, all memes aside, I did think this was James's best performance of the year. And I think he's starting to play with a little bit of confidence now. I thought that was his problem earlier on in the year. And you kind of expect that young player getting thrown into the starting role. I think he's now playing a little more confidence, a little more aggressive. He's a very physical player. And when you're physical and aggressive, that I think is the best version of himself. And that's what we started to see on Sunday. I'd like to see that continue going forward because, when we talk about the slot corner spot and all of that, I think everything can kind of be solved a little bit easier if the Steelers had more confidence in Pierre to come in those nickel situations. It provides such an easy out for them with being able to play Cam in the slot. And I know they're doing that, at times in some of those sub packages. But I think second half of the season, you'd like to see the upward trajectory of James Pierre because even if he's not going to play a big part in the second half of this season, like I said, Joe Hayden is in the last year of his deal in all likelihood, which is going to mean that this team's going to need a corner next year, and James Pierre can certainly throw his hat in the ring there.
No, I agree with that. He's making himself putting himself into that conversation next year. I still think the Steelers need to go get a top tier corner. At some point in the next couple seasons. Tony's trying to look at me funny.
They already have one. I mean, they already have one, Chris.
Gosh. Yeah. Oh gosh.
Oh, you're saying to go along. Oh, I see what you're saying. You're saying to go alongside James Pierre because you do want like a really great 1-2 corner. By the way, going back to PFF grades, which we all love. Chris loves them. I love them. We respect the hell out of what PFF does in their grading.
Sarcasm.
Yeah, definitely. James Pierre, by the way, is the 5th best defensive player by grading and on PFF, 5th best Steelers defensive player, and the best player in the secondary, which I think just matches, eye test stuff. You watch the tape and you're just like, that kid 42. Best player in the secondary by far, and PFF kind of
this has gone on long enough. This is I have given you way too much to enjoy right there. But in all seriousness, there's going to be some serious questions for the Steelers in the secondary this week with Minkah Fitzpatrick probably missing the game.
Yeah.
And now there's the question: do you with James P. Is Joe Hayden back? Because if he's back, then if Joe Hayden's back, I start thinking you put Pierre at the opposite corner, and then you say Cam Sutton, go be that extra safety guy out there.
Ooh, he is versatile. I mean, that's the one thing you love about Cam is how versatile he can be.
Ever since his days at Tennessee, he's been able to
Yep.
play all the different spots. And he won't be elite out there, but he will hold it down. And that will allow the rest of your defense to kind of play to where it needs to be. And that way, like that way, you're not saying, hey, Trey Norwood, go be the key safety that doesn't give up the big play for us, for an entire game against a top young quarterback like Justin Herbert. Because that's a lot of pressure to heap on a 7th-round draft pick rookie. Miles Killebrew, being put in that situation would be rough. But Cam Sutton bumping him back, and again, this is predicated on Joe Hayden making it back this week. If he's not back, I don't do this. Because then you got to put Justin Lane or Akella Witherspoon on a cornerback, and that I don't think the Steelers are ready to do. I think you'd rather gamble on Trey Norwood at that point, playing at safety. But they've got some interesting decisions to make with their rotation and how they're using their guys. I'm very curious to see how this is going to play out. But Tony, James Pierre, I think he's given them the ammunition to say, hey, trust me out there. I can hold down my side. Just do what you do so that this defense can get back to being aggressive. Because my biggest problem with this defense, they're stretched so thin they can't be aggressive because they're making up for all the guys that are missing.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you talked about with Cam, being able to put Cam at that safe spot, even if it's not something that he's doing day in and day out in practice, I think the Steelers are probably going to have far more trust in what Cam Sutton can do at that position than they would in certainly a rookie like Trey Norwood, even though they like him. He is so young. Miles Killebrew, veteran, but he's just getting started with the team. And same thing for Carl Joseph, who's a player that's been kind of bouncing back and forth from the practice squad. So, trusting in a player allows you to feel more comfortable calling defense. And I think Cam Sutton, I think you're absolutely right about Cam Sutton going to safety and just being the player that they can certainly trust the most in that role.
Absolutely. Tony, it's always a pleasure to have you here, even when you're spitting things so fast. I'm like feeling I'm on like a really fast merry-go-round or one of the tilt-a-whirls or the thing at the amusement park that makes you get sick. That's what that's how much spin you've brought to this show. But I called it the no spin zone, and then you make it the spin zone.
Right, that's right. Yes, we reverse.
Oh,
we spun the segment.
Oh, geez. Anyways, thanks so much for doing this, buddy. I always appreciate you. Let people they can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Steeler Country, and you can follow me on YouTube. I do a YouTube show called AFC North Talk. It is a roundtable show all about the AFC North. I suggest every Steeler fan give this week a listen. Even though, yes, the Steelers did tie the Lions, and it was not a fun game. We had a lot of fun with the entire AFC North because looking around the division, Chris, it was not a fun week to be an AFC North team. So we had a lot of fun with that on the show. Give that a watch. It's on YouTube. It's called AFC North Talk.
Absolutely. Do check him out. He is a great time. And Tony, you think Tony's good at the spin here, man? Wait till he trolls the other AFC North teams. It's a definitely a fun show to watch. But as always, you can find this show on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube. Like this video on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Really helps us out. Follow me, Chris Carter, on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. As you see below, there's both of our handles for Tony and myself. Be back tomorrow with Crossover Thursday, talking with the Chargers host, getting you ready for some Sunday Night Football right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.